thingy. Ahoy, hoy! I am sat here with a beer and, more importantly, the lovely Roberto.
Thank you.
And you are the lead...
studio art director.
Studio art director. That sounds important, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, sounds important.
Can't be that important, he's having to sit here and talk to us.
So you're the, the creative lead essentially behind the visuals.
For the visuals, yes, for the visuals, yes.
Awesome.
The look and feel of the variety of products we do, like WWX is being one of them.
Yeah, and also people may not know at home that you were the concept artist for the original WWX as well when it was owned by Outlaw.
Yes, with Romeo, when Romeo contacted me and asked me to work on all these great ideas from virtually from the beginning, yes,
right.
Kickstarter and everything, yeah, and yeah, I couldn't say no because now even more, but at the time it was really exciting, all the way he was explaining and what was the universe all about and his great ideas, and I thought, yeah, yeah, you have me with you 100%. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but yeah, it's getting more and more more exciting every time, every stage, every day. Yeah.
Awesome. So we as gamers, we play with toy soldiers. We don't really know what the concept art kind of thing is. We get a vague idea. We see concept art. We hear the term thrown around. What would you say it is from your perspective? How does it work?
Well, it's okay. Well, I'll try to generalize because obviously each project may differ slightly, but generally speaking, it's a pre-visualization of a goal, which in this case, most cases, will be a character. Right. So you get a textual brief or even a verbal brief. Like many times we have meetings with Stuart and the studio, and one or two or more characters are needed, but those are all words, or either written down or spoken. Mine, I say the duty of a concept artist is to actually take all those words and make a picture of those words, literally, and if it's a character, then just visualize what could he look like or could she look like, and then you go from there. It's very exciting because there's a lot of creativity involved. Obviously, if you come up with a lot of stuff that doesn't exist, some does, some doesn't, but the clever part is to try to integrate all those bits so that at the end, the bigger picture, which is the character, makes some sense to whoever looks at it. Even if you don't know too much about the story, the background behind that character, right? When you see somebody who looks at that final work and says, wow, okay, I like this, I like that, that's something, it's worked at the end. The process is obviously a little bit more complicated than that, because at least the way I do, and most of conceptual artists do, whether digitally or traditionally, you try to come up with a series of variety of options. You don't just do the one, because for the same reason that it's something that doesn't exist. You are building it, you're making it up, and there is so many different options that you can include in one single subject, and many times it's hard to actually choose. A character cannot have two heads unless it's supposed to have two heads or three heads. That's but and you come up with lots of like 4 or 5, even more, head options or helmet options, and it's like, oh, you got this, especially A and C you like particularly, but obviously you can't have both. And then there are discussions, there are meetings, and to decide which one would actually make more sense in this case, and if you can integrate some of the other option that you liked into the primary options. It's a very organic process. It's very intensive because, again, it's not just a case of drawing pretty pictures. What you see, sometimes we have shown, is the actual final, the finished, polished subject, character, or being a character, being a vehicle, whatever that is. But it's gone through all that process of thinking and deciding and cutting and pasting and getting to the final stage, basically. So It's very laborious. It's not, as I said, it's not just drawing a pretty picture. We do draw a lot of pretty pictures. I hope,
You draw
we
a lot
try,
of pretty
we
pictures.
try. Thank you. We try, but it's not just a case of just simply drawing a picture. There's a lot of parameters that you have to keep in mind while you do that, to make sure that everything you do is pertinent to what the main goal is in regards to that specific project.
Yeah, I suppose there's.
I hope I've made
No,
some
it
sense.
makes
Yeah,
sense
that
to
makes
me.
perfect sense.
I suppose you have to have a certain like iconography, if you like, or a certain you know, an enlightened dude might have to look a certain way over a union dude, and there might be certain design cues that you put in going, well, I know this guy's an enlightened dude, so I have to put in, it doesn't have to be all three things, but it has to at least have one.
Like the order, for example, might have like the same sort of symbols.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sort of thing,
you do have to define, you have to make sure that obviously if there are characters, especially if there are characters of different factions, then each faction, for example, will have their own traits, and those have to be portrayed and have to be echoed across the whole faction in a way or another. So yeah, you have to make sure that because you're gamers, obviously. Once you put your posses on a tabletop, you don't put the characters with the standard saying I am enlightened or I am. So they have to be visually distinguishable from one another, and also scream almost, yeah, I am an enlightened, and I am a dark nation, or I am whatever those other factions that you're playing. So those traits normally come from, you know, fluff about the game, about the backgrounds, about how they come about, why do they exist at all, and all that. And you as an artist, you pick those elements, which essentially they're not even meant to actually to be put together for that reason, but they are there, and those elements you just take them from that fluff, and you start applying and visually to characters or vehicles, and that's how then you get, as you were saying, the iconography. Then you start having common elements across the faction, and which will bring them all together once you put them on the table, even if they're scattered around, but you know who's who and what is what, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. So how's it been going through when you were, you know, you first did the concept art for Outlaw, and now you're in this new iteration of the game with a new company, new people. Do you feel more in control because now that you're the creative art director?
Studio art director.
Studio art director, sorry. So now you're kind of
So no,
able to. So like
it's not for that.
If someone helps you design something, you can say, well, that needs more Wexodus zhuzh from this point of view.
Yeah.
So how does it differ in the two ways?
It differs because I'm now officially, I mean, that little title, which is just, you know, it's just a fancy way of saying basically I'm responsible for the look and feel of, you know, that those characters of that project. Before, I was responsible for, at the time when I worked with Romeo on WWX, I was responsible for the visuals, but ultimately, once the final concept was done and dusted, then I didn't have any more saying on that. So if there were other issues like even production issues, because we know that certain things can be done in resin, and the same things cannot be done in plastics and so on. Yeah. So in that instance, if there were any aesthetical changes that required in order to make something doable, and I wasn't really called in, so they might have made changes and sometimes warping a little bit that original idea, that original feel of that character. Now I actually have that. I have basically, I wouldn't say control, but I have the ability and I have the responsibility to keep my eyes open on that. Every single character, all the way through, from the beginning to the very end. So if they need to make any changes, then I'm there saying, okay, we can't have it this way. Okay, can we have it this way then? Yeah, that will work. And I'll make sure that any changes are actually pertinent, that they're not just like technical, mechanical changes, and they might destroy a little bit, you know, the feel of that character. So
yeah, I suppose that makes sense from a production point of view. They might say, well, actually, we need to bend this arm because we can't fit it on the sprue.
Yeah, exactly.
And you say, actually, that makes a big deal to us.
Yeah,
I mean, it might be a little thing, but they don't do that.
Yeah, and I mean, we have exceptionally, you know, skilled people working on the projects anyway, so that they make my job easy. But there's always that extra that I think I can input and say, well, actually, yeah, you want to bend the arm, but do it like this instead of like that, because it conveys better what the character is supposed to convey in the first place. So yeah, I've and in the posing of the characters as well. And I was mentioning about the Marcus Cunningham, and now having in the proper pose, which was meant to be in that pose, more dynamic, running towards his objective.
He's a berserker type
exactly,
dude,
yeah, and it wasn't like that before. It was like standing there, and after when I looked at it the first time, which was like, you know, many years ago. I love the sculpt. The sculpt is brilliant. There's nothing wrong. You know, there was nothing wrong with the sculpt, but I thought the pose it really needed. I always imagined that character from the instant I was given the brief. I saw him as running through the field and smashing through things, either with his horn on the head or either physically or with that big sledgehammer, and that really sort of like it made him a little bit static. And I thought a lot of that it's dormant now. You know, it's a static character. It's really powerful. You can see his muscle. He's got this big hammer, big horn, but it's not really doing anything. So now we had a chance to remake that, and you know, and that's what I try to intervene and say, okay, yeah, let's pose it more like this. But again, I must admit that a good part of the work in posing it's done directly by the sculptors as well. So I intervene if I've got an extra thing to say or to maybe adjust. But they make my job easy. Let's put it this way. So I don't want to take all the credits for that.
Oh no, but it's great to have a team like that. That's creative.
And there is. That's the beauty of it. Because when you see the final product, the master, and you see that, you can just you have this sort of like a flashback, and you run through all the months of weeks and weeks of development, and you sort of recall all the feedbacks you've been giving and the feedbacks you're receiving, and you look at the final thing and say, wow, it was all worth it. You know, that's the beauty of it.
It must be great to see it all realised, and then people are playing with those dudes.
And that is the biggest reward. That is the biggest reward. When you put it on the tabletop, and you guys have seen some of the lucky enough to see some of the previews, and you go like, wow, and it's like, yes, that's exactly what we were aiming for people to look at it and say, wow, and that's it. That's what our job is done. You know?
And it must be. I mean, I'm no clever person, but when we were having a look downstairs at the model that we can't talk about, but the
things
that we were talking about. But it was interesting when we were. It's like, oh, that looks like this and this looks like that because of that pose, and you were like, yes, exactly. And it's like, oh, cool. And you feel like there's a certain unspoken communication.
Exactly.
That I think as gamers, we just think we want cool toys, but actually there is a certain amount of artistic.
And if you can pick those points up, it means that we've done a good job.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the first time you saw that model, and you started making those connections. There you go. That's worth all that effort, all that investment in mind power and time and what else goes into that. It was all well worth it. So, and you enjoy when you play it, and you'll enjoy because it's an experience. That's you see, and in my opinion, it's not just a gamer's experience, because that relates to playing the game and having fun with it, but it's the experience of actually when you purchase that and you pick it up and you say, oh wow, and there's all sorts of things go through your head, and it's that feeling. It's a good feeling that it's sort of like it kicks your imagination, and that's the purpose of those little things.
Yeah.
That's what gives
I
us...
hadn't really thought about it in that sense, but yeah, there is more to it than just playing a game. There's painting them, and when you paint them, you get a proper look at them. You forget. Normally you see them like this, but when you're painting, you're up here.
And when you do a little bit of simple, quite simple, like a dry brush, and then just all the details start popping up, and it's certain things that you actually hadn't seen in the first place, but now because you dry brushing, you create contrast in colors and shades. It's like wow, and you feel satisfied as well. So. There's a lot to...
And there is almost a certain amount of cooperation between the gamer buying the model and painting the model with obviously yourself. You've come up with the idea, the sculptors have done their bit by creating it in a 3D space. There's some rules for it, that they've created that, but then when you get it home, you've then done your bit by painting them up and using him and like fitting into that whole picture.
Oh yeah, because I mean the
we're like the other part of the team, if you like.
Yeah.
Well.
Unpaid, but you know.
Yeah.
You should pay gamers. Pay gamers to play. That's what you should do.
Well, you can propose it.
Yeah.
As I said, I only take care of the look and feel of things. Then
okay. But it's that look and feel of things that brought us into it, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because we had the first edition of the game.
And we played it.
No, we never played it.
Oh, did we not play it?
We never actually got around to playing it.
No. We were going to play it once.
So we got the second edition.
But because it's the second edition does have a few, it's got some really interesting new mechanisms, that the action depth.
It's much faster as well. Yeah, it's a much more rewarding experience by all means. Yes.
Yeah. And that's what gives
and
us
having,
the stories.
as you're saying, you've got that whole experience. You've got the game itself. You've got the artwork. You've got the fluff and the narrative behind what these factions want. There's no good and bad factions. There's just different shades of grey, which I really like.
Exactly.
And then you've got the models that ooze character. We were, excuse me, talking about a recent release, the Absolute Power Posse. Obviously, certain of those models weren't available before, and some of them have changed completely, well, not completely, but enough. And I think the Third Man. And it's a little thing. Having that handout.
Yeah. It just tells you everything about that character, even though it doesn't really tell you much. But
he's a hooded, cloaked guy. He's mysterious, but he's got that kind of feeling of like reaching out, controlling the world.
As opposed to the older version, which he wasn't really doing much.
Just kind of standing there.
He was standing there, and okay, it's mysterious. You could do that a bit of background, but as you say, just changing the pose a little bit, and a couple of things, because the actual design of the character itself, it's not really changed much from the older version, but it's the pose and it's some other things are showing off, and the sculpt is improved a lot on that character specifically, and all these things come together. A new background, more powerful background as well. You put it all together, and you do 2 and 2 together, and it's like you're a nice four on the table.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was looking at. We were talking earlier on about Megan Wild. We were talking about her the other day, and the way that she's. How do I put it? She's kind of sexual without being a sexy like.
I found it more sassy.
Some kind of sassy. She's
owning her. She is supposed to portray. It's like I go whatever I want.
Yeah,
and
she's got that vibe of like I'm going here. I'm doing this.
So it's a complete self-confidence, and she's got the objective set, and that's where she's going to go.
Yeah,
and
of course that then combines with the actual creation of the model, because her feet are very small. She's got little contact points, but the way her skirt touches the base as well, and I've pinned that, so it then fits really nicely, really stable model.
There are those are the classical technical issues with making miniatures. Obviously, now whether they're resin or plastic is the contact points. So there's always like a conversation going around. We just added some things, and I can't say too much. One of the very latest models sculptures have been done, and so maybe you'll have a look at some of them.
I think
I think he's got it. Yeah,
he's got it right.
And there was that beautiful model. We all loved it. It does exactly what it's supposed to be doing and more. But yeah, there was that technical issue.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's really try and be clever with it, because the simple way sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't, and it may just ruin the whole the whole, the flow of the whole design of the whole model. In this case, a simple idea just worked perfectly. Other times, I mean, you can make use of robes or whatever they're wearing, or changing the pose a little bit. I mean, that's a constant point there of open for discussion and for conversations. And okay, we got a nice design, nice model, brilliant sculpt, interesting pose. Okay, but we have this issue.
You've still got to make a miniature.
It needs to be solid and
it needs to be
easy for you to glue on a base, and then it's got to stay there for every single game.
We've seen it in so many games where they're beautiful models, but you can't play games with them. You know what I mean? There's so many systems that have that issue, and it's really frustrating. You might as well just have them in a case and then use bits of cardboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just play with cards, basically.
Yeah. So we've talked about how you've been working on Wild West Exodus then and now. So on a different kind of note, how's it been working on Dystopian Wars, which is something that you didn't work on before, and now you've kind of got to roll with and make your own without changing it too much?
Yes. It's a different kind of approach that a conceptual artist has, or a creative artist, or actor, whatever you want to call me, has to use, because there were when I started scrolling through all the existing designs for the battle groups and the battleships and everything, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there. So it wasn't a case of coming up with something new, which in some cases is actually easier. It was a case of having to retain the original feel, but obviously upgrading it and trying to evolve the whole story, so to speak. It's been exciting in that sense because it's a puzzle, and I love puzzles anyway. So as it's supposed to just copy something that was there and just adding a couple of features, this case was a little bit more intricate. Again, because I mean, some of the rules have been sort of like reworked out and rethought. There was like this rethinking process and everything. So then obviously they had to be tied in with that in mind. But it was just a case of like, I mean, that might be the wrong word, just modernizing them, but not in a sense of the history, because they're supposed to be what they're supposed to be. But just the way they again, the way they looked and they felt. Some of them, they were sort of, they felt, although they still retained some really cool elements to them, but they felt a bit dated, a bit just old stuff that you probably saw. Even like some of them, I don't want to offend anybody. Again, I mean, I thought they were really great designs, but it was a case of like give them like a facelift, refreshing that general feel. Okay, because I mean, take for example the Commonwealth, the Russian Borolino, we call it Borolino. That's the same name as they used to. They have a very particular design. They've got that central circular section, and then they've got this other. And I love that. When I looked at that, I thought, like, I love it. I don't want to change anything to that, but there's still some things that perhaps we can add to bring it up a notch or two. And some battleships more than others, but essentially, when you do things like this, you just generally you try to follow your instinct as well. It's the first look at things like, oh, okay, I'm going to make that something missing there, or something doesn't quite work well there. How about we put something else, and then you just try and error kind of thing sometimes, and other times you got a very much clearer idea of what you want to do. We did have parameters, because as you know, we've tried to the main purpose was to merge together Wild West Exodus as well with Dystopian Wars, and so in a sense that gave us some quite clear guidelines, what to keep and what not to keep, and what to add as well. So it wasn't just a case of guessing work and say, oh yeah, that looks better. It was again, like for the Covenant, the Enlightened, battleships. I don't know if you have seen any glimpses of those, and we've kept a lot of the original. It's sort of like a alien almost design, but we have made it more like towards our own, which is it's a crossing between what the Enlightened are in Wild West Texas and what those ships were in the first place in dystopian wars.
Supposedly, sorry to...
No, it's okay, because otherwise I just keep going forever.
That's great, it gives us more stuff to film. No, I suppose a really good example of that is the Scythe, is it called the Scythe?
The Scythe, yeah.
Which has got the, for people at home who don't know, they have shown all of the tiny, what were the tiny flyers, and the Scythe is the Enlightened one.
Or armoured clash, yes.
Yeah. And you've got like an Enlightened style ball laser on the front, but you've got a couple of construct dudes in the thing, so it's a perfect kind of marriage of those two like visual.
Yes, as you said. I mean, I don't think I can add any more to that, but essentially, that's you said it, so that's it.
But no, it's nice to see. It's nice to you to say what you're doing, and also to see it, to visualise it, because it's easy to say what we're doing this, but now I've seen it. It totally makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, I was just going to say we just saw a couple of the Prussians, and obviously you're redesigning them, and you've added this train system that kind of fits throughout them.
Yes,
you've still got the sharp brow.
Modular.
Two funnels was the word that they said.
Yeah, I call them stacks.
Stacks.
Yeah, but they call them funnels. We know what we're talking about anyway. So, there is things that
smoke.
That's from which a lot of smoke comes out.
Are there certain kind of design things that you look at and go, oh well, how would you take something and go, well, that has to stay and that has to stay, but that bit we can play with. How do you know which bits you keep and which bits you don't?
Well, there's no mathematical formula, obviously.
Right.
It's down to the experience of the artist who's working on it. I mean, sculptors have had their say in that. Some of the vessels, they have started playing around with them, just a few ideas, and some of the stuff that started coming up was quite interesting, and we kept that as well. And how you do that, it's again, you have to know. First of all, you need to know. I mean, say for example, you said the Prussians. It's a very specific type of they've got their own style. I mean, which sort of like echoes their cultural level as well of that time, and it all plays into this big bowl. It's all these big mixing bowls, and where you just throw in all the pertinent elements, and you just try to mix and try until things that are just naturally fall into place. I can't quite put into words that, but it's the experience that the person that's working on it has, how you apply that experience, the knowledge about the subject what you're working on, and what you need to achieve, and you put all that together, and it's I just do it.
You put it all together and something cool comes out.
Something cool comes out, because either something cool comes out or something cool comes out.
Yeah.
But then you have no choice. So,
And I suppose you then know, like you do all this stuff, and then someone else, and you think, yeah, that makes sense, and then other people look at it and go, no, actually, I think you've missed this bit, which was obvious because you've obviously got people who've played that game for years, and they go, when I think about it in my head, this is the iconography that stands out.
Obviously, at the end, you can only come up with one design. So, and if you want to listen every single suggestion, which we do listen to suggestion, but if you want to go for every single suggestion, then you would end up with 100,000 different battleships. So a call must be made, and that's usually relied upon professionals like like myself, perhaps. I don't want to sound a big head. I've got 26 years experience, so that's enough.
Right.
Somebody has to make a call, and based on I mean, it's not just aesthetics again, because if it was for me, there would be like very connects to what we were saying before, what you can actually produce, and what is really, really, really fantastic, but that can never be made.
Yeah.
So you know, you have to. There is that
balance it.
Exactly.
It's a shame, but that is true. That you can't make certain things.
Yeah, I mean, we should basically, if you wanted to do really what you wanted to do, then you would have to single 3D print
every single model.
And that's like, how much do you want to have one of those? £1,000?
Yeah.
I think so. Or more, perhaps.
I think what I'm learning from being here today is how much just feel. Like if you feel something's right, it's probably right or close to right. I mean, but it's hard to kind of quantify that and put that into.
No, it's not. That's what I was saying. It's like the simplest answer I can give you is like keep in mind. It's not mathematical. There's no mathematical formula. There is intellect. Like I mean, we think as human beings. You touch something, or you look at something, or you taste food. It's all down to a feeling. And obviously, it's much more complex than that, because obviously it's not. You're not just buying a pretty something that you can paint and then just display there. You have to play with that. You have a game. So everything, as I was saying before, everything has to come around, come back, and properly, you know, gear up and work.
Yeah.
So it is feeling. Feelings relates to. I mean, it's art. At the end of the day, it's art. So whether you are a writing background, a story, or a character, or you are actually drawing one, it's art. Art is all based on feelings, anyway. It's not like it's not like printing something out, or it's not like a plotter, or like an engine where you just like it does that and that's what it does. It's a form of expression, so it comes from somebody's soul anyway, you know, up there, and then you just spread it down to all the people involved into the project. So yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, when you look at something, you look at a model, you say you like it, you get a feel out of it. Yeah. It's a feeling. It's not because you don't go there and say, oh, that's perfectly executed, because that's 2 millimeters thick, and that's. No, you don't go like that. It's like, whoa! I like it because something sparks your imagination. And totally. You know, and that's all the way through from the beginning to the end. So. There's a lot of psychology into what we do as well. It's not just draw a pretty picture, do a sculpt, and make a mold out of it. No, it's not. Some people might do that, but it's a lot more than that.
That's the thing I hadn't even thought about. Like body language. We talk about poses. Poses, you know, inform your kind of thoughts about a model. So you must know about body language and how that interacts. So then you can use that pose on that guy.
You're absolutely right, 100%. Yeah, I mean, again, that's down to experience. You also do. It could happen. You do research. I mean, even for example, was a horse. I mean, it's natural. I mean, it's second nature. You know what a horse looks like. You know how a horse works and runs and does all that. But in that case, in that instance, I don't think I'm an expert in that. So but I can spot if something is wrong in a pose, or maybe if we should need something a little bit more energetic, more dynamic. And you just do a quick research and you learn things. So that's one of the good things about this job. It's you do learn things by creating new characters, spaceships or battleships. But even then, you happen to know more about industrial, industrial technical bits as well, which you didn't know before, because those bits then you have to include them into that design to make it look correct and look right.
Yeah, I've never thought of it like that.
We were just looking at stuff. I think we can talk about we were looking at the Prussian ships that were being worked on at the moment, and how you change the fact that because they get in a little train, they come in, but you had to change the turning circle so that they could physically, they would physically turn. And you know, it doesn't matter, but it does matter, and people will care, and it makes the whole thing feel more real.
Real, believable, yeah. It all plays with your imagination, with your knowledge, whether you know that much or not. But it just it's there, and it'll come if you're not immediately. It'll be on a second stage when you learn something, you pick up something, and then you start making new connections. You know, it's like your brain, how brain works. And so one of the things is like I learned, for example, we've been doing a lot of conquistadores, obviously, and I did a bit more of a research into their armor and why they all looked actually all different, because they weren't an army. They weren't like such. They weren't uniformed. Each one had their own stylized personal armor and the clothing underneath and all that. That was one of the things I learned. The other thing was actually they didn't call themselves conquistadores. It's only like I think 100 years after the last one of them died that actually history called them conquistadores. I hope I've read the right thing on the internet, and I'm not just making a fool of myself. But yeah, that's what I was a history site, so I'm hoping that was the real thing. And it's just to say, you know, things that you learn by researching, and you couldn't possibly know everything. So.
No. And that must be a really fun part of the job as well, right? Being able to expand your mind. It's not simply do this, do that.
No, yeah.
It's no mechanical part.
Exactly.
Of it. It's an organic, flowing thing. You gain all these new experiences, which must be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as I said, it's very organic, very rewarding, and it's very intellectually busy, which personally I like, because otherwise I'll just fall asleep, because it's, again, you know, if I just got to do a pretty drawing, it's boring to me. But if I got to create something new from nothing, then that becomes exciting, because you know, you feel like you're part of something that wasn't there and now is there. That's good.
Beautiful.
So as the essential, like the visual creator of what we see as Wild West Exodus, are there any design cues that we would see across not individual factions, but maybe is there something that is Wild West Exodus-y, if you like?
Well, you must have noticed for sure all the well, one of them might be, you know, what they wear and all those intricate designs.
Yeah.
Filigree type things.
Yes, which to a degree, even Warrior Nation wear some of that, where allowed. Obviously, they're more so like open nature kind of things that they're refusing that. But I mean, you know, and that's spread across weapons, clothing, vehicles, even. That's probably what one of the few elements that, as you say, it's spread across the whole range, no matter what faction you use. It's because that's almost like probably, I don't know if it's the right word, iconizing the actual the era, you know, their universe, and for them that's
kind of ornate Victoriana kind of vibe where everything was.
Because don't forget it, it's that time anyway. So sort of like a Victorian steampunk, but it's not really steampunk. Yeah,
RJ Punk.
RJ Punk, yes, it's industrial diesel punk. It's much heavier, much dirtier, it's much more,
I was going to ask, so talking about all of these different things and like, wow, and it's so great to hear, but do you have a favourite faction that you really like designing stuff for?
Fortunately, I get excited every time I get a new brief and I get a new card to work on. So, but as an artist, this is me. This is not as an artist. It's personal. I mean, professionally, I like, as long as you give me something new to work on, something new onto which I can fully express my creativity, then whatever it is, I'm going to enjoy it. But as a personal thing, I do like more like monsters and extreme sci-fi. So, in fact, I'm putting together my first, my plastic hex beasts, you know, flock, and I'm going to enjoy painting them and all that. But there is the Dixie Resurrections. I love those. I love the integration of you know, twisted and warped flash with the mechanical and industrial, you know, levers and cogs and all that kind of stuff. So.
It really gives you license to do a lot of things, doesn't it? Rather than just, we know what they're normal. So
yeah, because they're actually the hardest to do as well. I mean, take for example Warrior Nation. They are supposed to be clean, Indian Americans, but then again they still needed something extra to make them part of the Wild West Exodus, because otherwise, you know, they would have been just like American Indians, Native Indians, Native American Indians. But if you look through the way their clothing is placed, and some of the trinkets and some of the other little details, you'll see the small tweaks, small things that it'll catch your eye, and then subliminally you'll make a difference between the Wild West Exodus ones and the typical ones that we know from history. So, but that's been done with all, you know, and I hope that we achieve that with all the respect to the original Native American Indians.
And that's one of the nice things about having a world that is similar to but not the same as ours. You can make adjustments without it being too.
Within reason, where it needs to be within reason. Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny you talk about things. I've just put together two boxes of constructed menials, which are obviously ones that were original from the original version of the game. And it's the first time I've put the normal constructs together. I've put some abominations together, but seeing them with their kind of the almost like a exoskeleton that moves them around, and they're kind of strapped into it, and it's really evocative of how they act in almost their bodies that are controlled by mechanical parts.
On the battlefield, and how they're going to progress through this battle, and how they're going to almost like fearless anyway, because they don't know, they don't understand. They're just like they've got their objectives, and they just go to that and they do their job.
And I remember as I was
not feeling any pain or anything.
No, they just get away.
Not from the bullets anyway, not from the enemy fire.
No, from the RJ maybe.
From their own RJ.
And it was funny how I remember, you know, you were talking earlier on about the combination of you as an artist with the sculptors. And obviously this is an older model, but when I first started putting them together, and I was like, man, the legs are each in 3 pieces. There's a front leg, a back leg, and the bit in the metal bit, and I was like, oh, what a pain in the arse. But now I've put them together and I can see them, they look amazing, because that's a detail that in traditional 2D flat sculpt you wouldn't have been able to get. And now I can see that detail, and it's really popped out, and you can see these kind of chunky bits of metal, and it just looks, and that's a thing that I just, as a gamer, you just don't appreciate all the work that goes into it, how to make it
not directly. Yeah, no, I mean not all the stages, but obviously if you get to the point where you get them in your hands and you put them together and you enjoy all the stages that the gamer is supposed to go through, and then yeah, subliminally you're actually appreciating all the effort that gone through to make that happen and make you enjoy your time with it. So, but as you say, yeah, it's not nowhere clearly shown or spelled every single effort that goes into each one of those little miniatures. Yeah. I mean, until the very end, you explained, for example, you said that it was a pain in the ass to put all these little bits. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's not.
Once I've done it.
That's not as. Yeah, but that's not exactly. At least, you know, you got that. The final result is a big smile and a big sense of reward, right? Satisfaction. But that's not us saying, oh no, we want to try and make it as difficult as possible. That's unfortunately sometimes to make certain detail possible, especially in plastics, you do have to cut them in a few too many bits than we would like to. But that's the only way to actually get you saying at the end of the, you know what I mean? Because of the way the injection works and everything. See, there's all that's where the math comes in, and then sometimes it gets thrown back to the design level, where you say, okay, you know, we either having so many bits, or if you want less bits, then perhaps you may have to slightly change the pose so that you can show that detail, and then, you know, calls have to be made, and new arrangements and so on. So, but yeah, it's a constant battle from the initial brief to the final, until it gets to the boss.
Until they get on the table and then they blow them up.
I hope not literally.
Not literally, no, in the game. In the game.
within the game.
Yeah. It's amazing to hear, just, you know, as just normal gamer dudes, we don't appreciate all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So I really appreciate you talking to us and letting people at home know.
My pleasure. I mean, I hope I've been enough clear and.
Amazing.
Let us know in the comments down below what you think. Not in a bad way, but how you feel about now learning more about how these sort of things are produced.
Yeah.
One question I do have. Okay. So I assume you don't get a huge amount of time for actual gaming.
Yeah, not as much as I would like to.
But what's your favourite faction to play in Wild West Exodus?
Again, I would probably go with the mysterious and warpy sort of like. Again, I mean, to me, it's more of a look, the feel I get when I look at something, and I become that, and however it plays, I want to be that. So. Yeah, hex possibly.
Dirty.
Yeah.
But that's not. that's not to say that I don't.
Play other stuff.
Enlightened. I like enlightened.
Yes. Yeah, my boy.
Dirty. Dirty enlightened as well.
The dirty one. They're the ones that started it all.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
accidentally
As
delete that.
well. So that's my 3 factions.
Sorry.
Come on, boy.
There's plenty of factions.
Man.
Sickening.
Well, thank you again. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you for the next thing we film.